right. It's quite an introduction. Is it working? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start my talk by, showing off a few examples of what I'd like to call the decay of power. I would like to start off by asking you to try to find a connection, if you can, between these four examples. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it, and if you want, talk with your neighbor and try to figure out what do these four examples have in common. Well, I guess I have to stop you now because I'm running the TED Talk here, it's not you. So I need to move on. Let me walk you through each of these examples, and hopefully by the end we'll be able to see the connection between these four examples. So the first one I think is kind of obvious. We all kind of know what the Arab Spring is about. If you go back to 2011, we saw by then that through the uprisings in the Arab world, four rulers, long-standing rulers, were actually forced out of power in a very short amount of time. By the way, during that period, 9 out of 10 people actually used Facebook to organize the protests. So actually we concur with the idea that Zuckerberg is helping world peace, I guess. And by the way as well, when Mubarak got into power in '81, Zuckerberg was not even born. So you see how fast things actually go today. Let me go now to the second example. Maybe some people know of this story. Back in 2012, Amanda Palmer did a TED Talk. She got, in the meantime, 6 million views for that. So I hope you guys go out there and spread this TED to other people. Not only that, after that, she started a crowdfunding campaign for her next album. And with that, she was able to raise $1.2 million of funds to start her album. So you could wonder, is that the new way of going about the music industry? Okay, so also for the crowdfunding campaign, don't forget about me next time. I'm going to start one. $1 million is the target. So Pablo Iglesias has nothing to do with Julio Iglesias and his son, Enrique. Nothing about music. Pablo Iglesias is actually the leader of this political movement in Spain called Podemos. This was founded in January 2014 by a group of 30 intellectuals in Spain. In May 2014, they got 8% of the votes for the European Parliament and were able to elect 5 members of Parliament. Some of them were actually unemployed. And actually they proposed to only get 3 times the minimum wage in Spain. So we are observing a major shift in the old political structure in Spain as we speak. They have currently 700,000 members on Facebook. That's about 3 times the other parties. Major shifts in how political party systems are working. The last one, this is the most intriguing part, I guess. KitKat, we don't see that one. Right, let me take you back to 2010. By then, Greenpeace started off a campaign with a video against Nestlé, which, by the way, is the biggest food company in the world. And in that video, they showed this office worker eating a KitKat pack. Within that KitKat pack, there was an orangutan finger. So you might wonder, what does an orangutan have to do with Nestlé? Well, basically, in that KitKat goes, or used to go, a lot of palm oil. And in order to extract palm oil, you need to kill a lot of rainforest. And with that, we're basically leading the orangutan to extinction. That campaign allowed to mobilize 400 million people in the world. After that, not only Nestlé stopped using palm oil in their KitKat and their products, and they even joined the round table for palm oil tree protection. So what these 4 things have in common are major shifts in power. Traditional institutions, some going for dozens of years, within just a few weeks or a few months or a few days, get completely transformed. So we're really observing major shifts in power. So you might wonder now, well, okay, so why is that? Why is that happening? Well, I guess for the very first time in history, we're actually observing the phenomenon of power to the people. With the digital revolution, for the first time, information and knowledge is actually pretty much accessible to everyone. If you go back to the 16th century, Francis Bacon said already then that knowledge is power. The difference today is that knowledge is not only for a privileged few, it's actually pretty much for everyone. We all can have access to power. So that's the major shift we're seeing. So you might wonder now, okay, so in this new world, maybe we don't need leaders anymore. Well, I would argue against it, otherwise I'm out of job because I do research on leadership. I would like to claim that leadership is still needed. Leadership is at the basis of social organization. But we need a different type of leadership. We need different leaders. So, what I'd like to claim is that we need, in order to lead in a world of decaying power, there's a paradox. Because in order to lead in a world of decaying power, you need to empower to gain power. It's very simple and paradoxical, but this is how I think it should be done. Empowerment allows people to take ownership, it motivates people, it also creates agility. And through that, you're actually able to be more effective, and with that, you gain power. So it might be a bit complex and abstract at this stage, but I'd like to show you a few examples that I think demonstrate what I'm talking about. So there are already leaders out there that understood this formula. So let me take you to the first one. You might know Ricardo Semler. He's the CEO of the Semco Group in Brazil. He actually has a very, very powerful claim there, where he says, the key to management is to get rid of the managers. So I think it was back in the 90s at some point, he had a serious health issue, and he basically dramatically changed how his company looked like, was organized. At some point, he decided to empower workers to define how they work, to define their jobs, and even as far as defining how much they make, their salaries. And with that, since then, actually the Semco Group was not only able to grow faster, as Ricardo himself became quite a powerful and influential leader, not just within the realm of the Semco Group, but actually throughout the world. He teaches at Harvard and all kind of things. So by empowering workers, he was able to make sure that his business was more profitable and growing much faster. So that's the first one, the empowerment of workers. Multinationals as well are paying a lot of attention to this. We just talked about the example of Nestle. Empowering consumers is already taking place. This is an example from Paul Pullman from Unilever, just around the corner. And he said very recently, companies that miss acceptable behavior to consumers will be selected out. So if you want to stay in business, you need to empower consumers in order to stay there and to be competitive. Be it through open innovation, be it through ethical boards, be it through forums, what have you. It's critical for companies to empower consumers if they want to stay in business. So let's move on now to another part. Education. Sir Ken Robinson, a well-known specialist on education. Look at what he said. The future for education is not in standardizing, but in customizing. And we see it every day. Every day we hear news about a new school doing flipped learning, or using blended learning, or online, all kinds of technology, new technologies to flip the classroom, and essentially to empower students to own the learning process. Right? So we still need the teachers. The teachers are still the leaders in the classroom, but we increasingly see their role changing from just telling information and knowledge, and to empower the students to own the process and to grow them as leaders by that. So empowering students is also taking place. The other case, in religion, this is Pope Francis. You already notice a different language being developed at the Catholic Church. For the first time you hear people talking about things that were unthinkable, maybe just 2 years from here. Just try to think about it. Look at it. Pope Francis is the second person in the world with the most followers, 14 million, just behind Barack Obama. And for every tweet he has, there are 17,000 retweets. He's probably looking at us now and sending a question for us to answer later. So even the Catholic Church understood, if you want to stay in business as an institution, we need to give a stronger voice to the people who believe in us so that we can keep going for another 2,000 years. So even in the church, it's happening. Another one is about citizenship, empowering citizens. This Switzerland is in here because they've been kind of experiencing and actually implementing direct democracy for already many, many years. And what is direct democracy? Well, it's a process through which actually people vote for what they want, instead of voting on someone that represents them. That's a representative democracy. So in Switzerland, they do it already for a long time. And we increasingly see countries and localities and regions and cities more and more opting for direct democracy. Podemos in Spain is an example of that. So even the Spanish are becoming Swiss. Isn't that weird? And as Victor Hugo once said, maybe it's true, maybe in the end of history, Switzerland will have the last word. So I walked you through a series of examples showing, I hope, demonstrating that empowering is critical in a world where power is becoming more and more diluted. As paradoxical as it might sound, empowerment is the solution for you to stay in power. So what does it tell about the sort of leader we need? Well, I would like to say that a leader still needs to be competent in the traditional areas of having vision, setting direction, making people accountable, being able to make decisions. That still holds. What is new, I would like to claim, is that this new leader needs to be humble. This aspect of humility is something that only since very recently, is being addressed and seen as a key trait of the new leader. Humility comes from the word humus. It's a Latin word which literally means earth. So to be humble is to be connected to earth, to be grounded. And that means that you don't let power go to your head. So what does humility do to you as a leader? It keeps you sharp. It allows you to learn. It allows you to respect others for what they can contribute. So it creates an openness towards others and towards learning that will be critical for you to work and be effective as a leader. So to wrap it up, and by the way, I forgot about that one, which is really important for our dean. Basically at RSM, Erasmus University, we've actually been able to prove that. We have some research that shows that competent leaders who at the same time are humble towards their followers generate more empowerment. And with that, they generate also more performance. So there's actual scientific evidence for what we're saying here. So the essence of being an effective leader in a world of decaying power seems to rely on a formula of being competent, being humble, and empowering to gain power. So if you're a businessman, make sure that you empower your workers, make sure you empower your consumers, you'll be able to stay in business. If you're a teacher, make sure you empower your students, and they might grow as leaders. And if you're aiming to become Prime Minister or becoming the Pope, then I guess you need to go on Twitter. Thank you.